Today, I want to talk about investment vehicles and how it affects how I watch investments and how you may consider watching investment. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is SPAC. Okay, so basically, people form a corporation with whatever's amount of shares in it and no assets. And they just bring it legal. So now it's legally out there. They have to pay taxes and all this other stuff, but there's nothing in it. All right. Then they go out and they approach other people, put assets into their SPAC, and then the SPAC goes up in price and people, quote unquote, make money. Uh, I watch SPACs only because in my career, when they first started, they were all done by the penny stocks, people like the Wolf of Wall Street. SPACs were a dirty word. Okay, then they kind of got revived here, and in the last 7 or 8 years, and there's been a bunch of SPACs that come out. Just anecdotally, my experience over the years is 95% of the people lose 95% of the money. If you're not one of the original people who put together the corporation, own all the inside warrants, that's how they make their money, by the way, you rarely ever make money. Okay. But, people still buy them, it's what they do. The other one I want to talk about is a special purpose vehicle, SPV. And in the financial world, they're SIV, special investment vehicles. But today we're going to do SPVs, special purpose. And a special purpose vehicle first came to my attention. It could have been stuff happened before, but I'm just saying from my point of view, was with Enron. Enron raised money through, I think they did SIVs, okay, special investment vehicles, because they're a trading firm. And as you know, Enron is one of the most famous blow-ups ever, okay? What people don't realize is that all the big banks, before the great financial crisis, used SIVs. And we put money into the SIVs. And what we didn't do, and what they were designed not to do, is you don't count the debt against your debt that you have. It's not part of your capital formation. It's in a special investment vehicle or a special purpose vehicle. You don't consolidate. This is the key part. All right. So, what's been going on with these SPVs? So, in late October, Meta got hit and everyone was afraid of all the AI. We all know what's been going on. We're not here to discuss that. Okay. And Zuckerberg says that this is the way to go. And so here they talk that Meta was set to clinch a $30 billion financing deal for the Louisiana data center. I think it's like a $10 billion data center. But now we get to the interesting part. Meta and an alternative asset manager, Blue Owl Capital, will split ownership of the Hyperion data center in Louisiana, and the social media giant will retain 20%. Okay, so Blue Owl gets 80%. And you can see Morgan Stanley arranged it, 27 billion in debt, 2.5 billion in capital. That, I guess, they're owning their 20%. Meta is not borrowing the capital itself, but the financing entity is under the SPV structure. Bloomberg News reported Meta will be the developer, operator, tenant, and of the project until 2029. Again, remember that date, 2029, very important. So when we went on and asked Perplexity, they said, Meta structured a record-setting $30 billion financing to an SPV. Benet is the name. And SPV arrangement allows Meta to keep most of the debt off its balance sheet, thus preserving its financial ratios and credit metrics. It's like magic. You didn't borrow it, okay? So they go through the numbers we just saw. They're A+ rated bonds due in 2049, about 225 basis points over U.S. Treasuries, and they say the same thing we said before. So here they say it's the largest privately arranged financing agreement in U.S. tech history. The SPV structure provides Meta with flexibility, and it's a growing trend in the tech infrastructure. Why? Probably because they need copious amounts of money that they don't really want to borrow and put on their books. Okay, so this all goes through. But then Blue Owl, which is an alternative manager, they decide that they are going to take this fund, okay, the fund, and they're going to merge it into another fund of theirs. And they announced that late last week. And you can see here that they announced it in the morning. I think by the afternoon or maybe by the next morning, they called it off. It was so obviously negative for the shareholders of Blue Owl that they literally just called it off. I mean, when I read the terms, I couldn't believe it myself. Now they go in here and they say they're trying to revive it, but I want to go over, think about what happened here. Blue Owl Capital was a SPAC. They had nothing, okay? People were going to put assets in. So whoever put in the assets first, then they went out and borrowed all this money to build this Louisiana center. So now this Blue Owl has 17.6 billion in assets and debt, okay, let's be honest, and debt. And they reportedly want to merge into a much smaller, illiquid related fund, Blue Owl Capital Corp 2, which has 1.8 billion in assets. And so all this stuff is very important here. It's much smaller. What is going on there? It's the illiquid, what's going on there, and it's a related fund that's much smaller. And the big firm is going to take a 20% haircut to go into the little fund. All right. So, and look, they talk here that the private credit industry, as we all know, has been under the gun the last 30 days with mispricing, basically fraud. And now everyone's like, and now you're going to an illiquid, opaque pricing vehicle at a 20% discount. Not happening. So Blue Owl's now saying, look, here's the stipulation we're going to put in. You can stop and read it yourself. It really doesn't. It doesn't really matter. They're probably, in my opinion, they're going to jam this through. The reason that they're going to jam this through and they will find whatever becomes acceptable is because Blue Owl is in big trouble. Okay. I don't know why. I don't get to what they're doing, but that's what's going on. So I'll be honest. When I saw that Meta was doing this, with their cash flow, Google, Meta, Apple, I don't understand why you would do this. I mean, I know they have to raise a lot of money, but it still doesn't make any sense to me business-wise. And I was baffled. I was like, maybe I'm missing something. And then I saw this on Sunday. You should stop and read this. But basically, this is what this guy says, he's wondering in the first paragraph what's going on, just like I do. And he's like, I was concerned this was some kind of sleight of hand. Obviously, he knows about what we did, the banks, and what Enron did. And he says, but it's not. It's worse. They basically have a walk-away rights every 4 years and a declining residual value guarantee. Blue Owl is holding the bag. So Blue Owl is at risk at any point. Meta basically says if we're not getting return on this particular data center complex, we're out. So remember what we said before? That the contract is until 2029. Well, it's 2025, 4 years, okay? So in 2029, they can walk out. Now you go back and you look at what they're doing with the depreciation on these chips. This is the depreciation schedule for the chips for all our big tech companies. Look at Meta at the top. In 2020, they were 3 years. Now they're 5.5. How long is this deal for? 4 years. So in other words, with this long depreciation, Meta is increasing their revenues about 20 billion a year, and then they get to walk away from these useless chips. I don't know about Blue Owl. What do you think? Tell me in the comment.